Welcome into Shot and Vipp, a podcast brought to you this football season by Inside Carolina. I'm Taylor Vippolis hosting this, and as always, I'm joined by my former teammate, former Carolina football letterman, former Carolina linebacker, just an overall great guy who, despite everything, I'm happy to see him today. My teammate, Jeff Schoettmer. Shot, Carolina loses 70-50 at home against James Madison. One of the worst losses I can remember watching, one of the worst first halves of football I can remember watching, with James Madison scoring over 50 points that first half. Where do you begin? The floor is yours. Take us wherever you want.
Vipp, this is tough, man. Watching that game yesterday, just like last week, I wanted to turn the game off, for how much love I have for the University of North Carolina, how much love I have for the program, how much Carolina has done for me in my life. I didn't want to watch anymore. And neither did the fans. I mean, you saw, by the third quarter, the stands looked like the fourth quarter of a spring game. And I don't blame everybody. And we always support our Tar Heels, but that was a catastrophe. Coach Brown knows it. The players know it. Bubba knows it. I mean, a blind person could see how bad that game was. And there's no words that I can say on this podcast to accurately describe, what we witnessed, but it was a failure from everyone in that building. And I have a bunch of relationships with people over there, and it's tough to say, but college football is a production business. Football is a meritocracy, and you get what you earn. And we earned an ass whooping yesterday from offense, defense, special teams, players, coaches, everyone. It's just there's no way to sugarcoat it. It was an awful performance. The thing that frustrated me the most was, you have a JMU program. They've been on the rise the last couple of years, but they're still, they don't have the resources, the talent, any of the capabilities that the University of North Carolina has. And the most frustrating thing about this game was you have 12 guaranteed opportunities as a player and a coach to have a team, a program less talented than you, come into your stadium and have more physicality, more energy, more aggressiveness. It's just unexplainable. Those are the things that take no effort to be able to do. And, the fact that JMU dominated both lines of scrimmage, their coaching staff was way more aggressive in terms, they were playing to win the game. Our coaching staff did nothing, in my opinion, to go out of their way to help the team to win. Like, look at the 2-point conversion they scored in the first quarter. Look at the block punt they had. Look at the onside kick in the first half. The blitzes they were dialing up. They were leaving it all out on the field and doing whatever they could to win this game. And we were just, I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. When you're watching that game play out from the first quarter on, from the first play on, when JMU breaks that long run with the quarterback run, you could see the differences in both sidelines, where the JMU side looked like the confident group, the group that knew that they were coming into a place to win a game. And it looked like the Carolina sideline was the sideline that was like, hey, we're kind of in trouble now. And we talk about how James Madison is a respectable group of 5 program. I thought Buck made an interesting point on the day after program, where he said this JMU program was put together with barbed wire and duct tape this offseason, where their head coach goes to Indiana. He takes anybody worth a damn on their roster with him to Indiana. Their quarterback transfers to Texas State, the Sun Belt Player of the Year. How can JMU put together a program in the few months that their new coach has been there that could put up 70 points in Chapel Hill on UNC in their own stadium? And this North Carolina team in year 6 under a head coach has no answers. And not only did they have no answers, the other part, it was a disaster. just a disaster, an embarrassment, and any word you want to describe that game, I think fits today. And I had the same thought when I was watching the game that you did, like third quarter or before that, second quarter. I'm like, why am I watching this game? Like, I could clearly tell what direction this game is going. And again, I'm somebody like yourself who really cares about this program. And this was a point I made in my post game video where it's like Carolina already has this reputation that where this basketball school, anybody who cares about football really, really cares about the football program. Like, you're not going to find too many casual Carolina football fans. But even from that group, you're starting to see the apathy kick in where it's like, what are we doing? Like, I don't want to watch this. Where have you kind of seen that from the fan base, whether it's on social media, just talking to people, or just from your own experience watching this program?
You know, it's tough because, you know, we entered this game 3-0, and you know, we're before the game, we're playing a JMU team that on paper we should, you know, win handily. Even the Vegas sports books had us, you know, 10, 11 point favorites. So everyone's expecting us to win the game. And, you know, we quote unquote win this game, and you go into Duke 4-0, and, you know, vibes are high. Like you can't knock a team that's undefeated regardless of who's on their schedule. So I don't want to be like completely change. Like I talk to my you know, my former teammates and friends, and you know, they still have so much love for the program, but it's just like watching that performance makes you question a lot of things, because it feels like our program just has a bunch of Band-Aids on it. And finally the Band-Aid got ripped off and everything was just exposed. You know, we squeaked. Like the thing that I don't understand is I was at the Minnesota game. I was sitting on the sideline for all 4 quarters. And the physicality we showed against Minnesota, against a pretty solid Big Ten program, was nowhere even in comparison to what I witnessed on Saturday. And I'm just like, how is that the same team 3.5 weeks apart? And, you know, it starts at the leadership. But I guess the frustrating thing is we've seen this year after year after year where we play down to the level of the competition, and we can't get our team up for all 12 games on our season. There's so many ups and peaks and valleys on our team every year, regardless of what players on the roster, what coaches on, what defensive coordinators call in the game, what offensive coordinators call in the game. It's the same story every year of we have flashes of, you know, are we about to turn the corner and be a perennial top 15 program in the country? And then we have 1 or 2 games in the year where it's just like, we don't even belong in the MAC. Like, we're a mid-level MAC team, the performance we put on the field. So I think that's the most frustrating thing. I think if we were a steady, we played hard every week, every game under Coach Brown, then the fans and former players would be more like, I guess, willing to accept mediocrity. But, you know, it's just the peaks and valleys of this program are so catastrophic. And to see a performance like that, it's just, I honestly, I'm struggling with words to come up with of what to say. And I'm sure the listeners out there, I mean, they know exactly how I'm feeling. You know exactly how I'm feeling. Like, what are you going to say about this? Like, what can we say in this podcast to, you know, ease the minds of all Carolina folks? Because there's really nothing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a good point with the problems that have kind of rolled over from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 to now year 6, where anybody that watches football, understands the X's and O's of football, can see how a team is being coached, has kind of been putting up the warning signals this entire time and being like, hey, this North Carolina team over the past 6 years has shown a lot of tendencies for bad football. And when it's really poked its head out has been the games against Virginia, the games against Georgia Tech, the game against James Madison on Saturday, where the entire structure of the Carolina football program the past 6 years has kind of felt like, hey, the past 5 years up to this point has kind of felt like, hey, we have Sam Howell, the other team doesn't. We have Drake May, the other team doesn't. When you take away that NFL starting caliber quarterback, what you're left with is what we saw in the bowl game against West Virginia, where a very mediocre West Virginia team runs us out of the building, runs us out of a building in Charlotte where it's predominantly West Virginia fans. A team like James Madison runs Carolina out of the building, and in that fourth quarter, the Kenan Stadium is just James Madison fans. And I have this stat from Greg Barnes. This is UNC's 8th loss as a double-digit favorite since 2019. The 4th time in those games that UNC has lost by double digits as a double-digit favorite. He went on to say that's absurd. I definitely agree with him. Going to this James Madison game specifically, there was a stretch in the first half where the defense, Carolina felt like they were starting to settle back into the game. I think they were up 14-11, and then the Dukes scored touchdowns on 5 straight possessions. What did you see from the defense there? Because I think even the most casual Carolina fan could say what I saw was just receivers without any Carolina defenders within 10, 15 yards.
I think I'll start with this. I should probably have my podcasting license analysis card revoked because I've been very high on the defense over the first 3 weeks, and I mean rightfully so, because they showed a completely different product in this game of what they showed all year. They showed that they were at least covering people, putting a body on a body. They showed physicality in the run game. They showed good red zone defense. They showed way better tackling than we've seen in the past 5 years, honestly. And this game was everything but that. In those 5 drives specifically, the thing that stood out to me the most, there's 3 things. There's a lot of things. Number 1 was the lack of pass rush that we got with a 4-man pass rush. With 3 of our 4 starters, obviously Rucker's not out there, and he's a big element, in the pass rush. But we couldn't get a lick of pressure with 4 guys. And to even make it worse, when we did rush 4 guys, JMU has an athletic quarterback that can move around, and we did nothing to keep him in the pocket. So number 1, we couldn't get a sack, and number 2, we couldn't even get a sack. We couldn't even leave him in the pocket. And one of the touchdowns in the red zone, Des Evans, it's a 4-man rush. He makes an early move inside to the B gap, open B gap, gets completely washed down. The quarterback, obviously it's a short porch. He steps up. We're in man coverage. He goes to run the ball into the end zone. The linebacker comes off his man to try to tackle the quarterback, and he just dumps it off for a touchdown. But that is strictly on the pass rush. And looking at these JMU offensive line, I'm like, these guys look like average high school players. Just their stature.
Yeah.
Obviously they were physical and well coached and they executed well, but just looking at them getting off the bus, I'm like, these guys don't look the part of belonging on the ACC football field. And the second thing was the blown coverages. JMU had guys running scot-free down the field, and we didn't have a guy within 20 yards. And the frustrating thing for me is they weren't running this insane scheme that we've never practiced or seen before. All the concepts that JMU showed us on offense were things we have either seen in our training camp from our offense or from the first 3 opponents we played. It wasn't like they came out and ran the triple option against us and we had never prepared for it. So it's just it's frustrating in that regard. And then penalties were a huge issue. Two stuck out to me, and the first one was Josh Harris on the late hit.
Yeah.
The game is in the first or second quarter. It's it's probably a 1 or 2 possession game, still well within reason for us to win the game. And Josh makes a good play and just undisciplined from a 6-year senior to dump the guy late. And then that was a drive starter. You know, it was going to be 2nd and 11, 2nd and 12. And now it's 1st and 15, ball is at the 40, and they go down and score. So just huge momentum swings in the game. And then the other one was Des Evans. You know, how many times have we seen our defensive linemen over the last 5 years of the quarterback claps, just like every quarterback in college football for the cadence, and our defensive line is not watching the ball. They're listening to the quarterback. They hear the clap, and they jump off sides. And then now JMU has a free play, and they score a 70-yard touchdown because of the most simple thing a D lineman can do is, if I'm a 5 technique out wide, I'm watching the ball and I'm getting off on the snap. If TJ Watt can do it, I should do it. The best pass rush, Micah Parsons, watch those guys. They're looking at the ball. Like, it's the most simple thing. And for our coaching staff to not get that corrected in 5 years with a player has super high potential is just, it shows me everything. It tells me everything that I need to know. You know, I was on the staff when Des Evans was a freshman or sophomore, and he was doing the same thing then that he does now. So, you know, those are the frustrating things to me. But I guess the other thing is, anytime JMU lined up to run, our run defense has been very stout this year. Anytime JMU lined up to run the ball, and, you know, the whole stadium knew they were running the ball, and we couldn't stop them. JMU's offensive line was pushing our defensive line around. Our linebackers didn't play well. Their eyes were all over the place. Our secondary, Stick Lane, did not have a good game. He was taking terrible angles, was not helping in the run game. It was just, it was frustrating to watch because of how good, in my opinion, our defense has played up to this point. So, you know, I think you know, maybe all week, instead of watching JMU's offensive tape, they watched, you know, 2020 defensive highlights from UNC, and it's what got them to play bad. But yeah, I'm going on a tangent. I'm getting sidetracked. I don't even.
I think you hit on it too, where every mistake that Carolina made in this game, you can point at it and say, not a coaching thing. It's a player like Des Evans making a mistake, or it's a player like Josh Harris doing something bonehead in the moment that really cost the team. But these aren't really isolated incidences, and they're problems that you saw year over year over year, and that's when it becomes the coaching issue. And the other thing that I think has become a coaching issue for this team, no matter who's in charge of the special teams, has been how bad Carolina's special teams have been. They get they block a punt in the second half, but JMU's punter was kind of fumbling it. That could kind of be explained why Carolina was able to block a punt. It wasn't like Carolina schemed that up. When Carolina got their punt blocked in the first quarter, that was just JMU out scheming Carolina. And then the onside kick, again, that's Carolina falling asleep and seeing and JMU capitalizing on a moment where they could catch this Carolina team sleeping. Special teams has continued to be a problem for this team. When we were playing with Coach Fedora always emphasized to us how important special teams were going to be. Make game-changing plays on special teams. For this North Carolina team, they make a ton of game-changing plays on special teams.
For the other team.
They're just for the other team. Yeah. What did you make of the special teams for Carolina this past Saturday against JMU?
The funny thing about the blocked punt from JMU in the first quarter was, it wasn't like it was a good scheme at all. It wasn't some crazy twist where they, you know, added an extra man on the shield. It was a straight, you know, rusher from the outside. The two shield guys had accounted for two rushers, and the guy just came unblocked off the short porch off the punter's foot side. And it was like, I don't know. It was nothing like overly complicated at all. It was a simple rush, a simple dead straight. The guy was the end man on the line of the scrimmage and knew what the block point was and got there, and no one laid a hand on him. And maybe it was, you know, I don't know the snap time and the execution time of if it was slow or not, but it was a very simple play. And if JMU can see that on tape and take advantage of it. I mean, our coaches are watching, they have access to the same film. It wasn't like they showed anything out of the ordinary for that to happen. But yeah, no words, man. And this is off topic, but the thing that bothered me, and I kind of alluded, about this in my opening statement, was we obviously got out executed. We got out physical. They had more energy, etc. At the end of the first quarter, it's 25-14. What I wanted to see, the game is well within reason. We have way more talent and we had way more opportunities to come back and beat them. But I wanted Coach Brown to, at the end of the first quarter, send every trainer, everyone else to the sideline. I want all the guys that traveled at the 50-yard line in a circle, rally the troops and lay into them and be like, awful first quarter. Here's what we're going to do for the next 3 quarters to win this game. Watch Kirby Smart coach. He looks exhausted at the end of the game because he is coaching his ass off from the opening snap to the final whistle. And we never had one time in this game where they showed Kamen Rucker do it. He called the defense over, but I need you as the leader of our program to galvanize the troops, rally the guys together, obviously tell them awful first quarter, we got to forget that and move on. But here is what we're going to do to win the game going forward. And there was none of that. It was just the woe is me kind of look, kind of what's going on? I can't believe we just got punched in the face. I mean, what do you expect from JMU? They're just going to come in and lay down? They're just going to hand us the win? Because I don't know.
Yeah. It goes back to the point where in the moment, I would have swapped players and coaches with what I saw from the JMU sideline, because that was the side that was playing with aggression, that was playing with the belief, that was playing with confidence. And if I could see it from here on my TV, those players can feel it when they're trying to get back in a game and having that kind of sorry or feel sorry for yourself type mindset. Few stats. JMU scored 53 first half points, the most by any team, UNC or an opponent, in a half in Kenan Stadium history. JMU totaled 611 yards, the most by an opponent since Georgia Tech gained 635 in 2023. JMU quarterback Barnett III was responsible for 7 touchdowns, which tied the record for most touchdowns responsible by an opponent. Wake Forest Sam Hartman had 7 in 2021. Besides that, how was the play? Miss Lincoln with just a disaster. Quick break so we can remind everybody about the people that support us. First up, we got Lucha Tigre. Qua at Lucha Tigre is fusing Latin and Asian cuisine with a full bar serving tequila and sake. Shot, when I get down, the first thing I want is that General Tso's chicken.
No doubt. That can cure even the ugliest of losses.
If I could drive to Chapel Hill right now and get some General Tso's chicken at Lucha Tigre right off MLK Boulevard, I would feel a lot better. Support the people that support us. Lucha Tigre, huge Carolina fan in Qua. And speaking of huge Carolina fans, IP3, Italian Pizzeria 3, it's a Chapel Hill tradition. Brothers Angelo and Vincenzo Marone have been serving up authentic Italian pizza and Italian food in Chapel Hill since 1980. IP3 has a full menu of fresh dough pizza and other Italian specialties. Visit them on Franklin Street. Support the people that support us. Lucha Tigre, IP3. And finally, it's all reliable. It's Johnny T-shirt. You could go to Franklin Street and visit Johnny T-shirt. And if you're not going to be in Chapel Hill, no worries. You could go online to johnnytshirt.com. They have everything the Carolina fan could possibly want: the hats, the T-shirts, the jerseys, you name it, they've got it. It's great people, great customer service, locally owned and alumni operated. Johnny T-shirt is the place to go for Carolina gear. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. And also, I forgot to mention, if you go to Lucha Tigre and you mention Inside Carolina, you will get a discount on your order. But again, take care of the people that support us, support the people that support Carolina Athletics, Lucha Tigre, IP3, Johnny T-shirt. Shot, I thought if we're playing glass half full today, and I want to try to play glass half full today because I think one of the things we learned from Coach Fedora is you can't just say everything in a football game was bad for the most part. I think there are some things that you could take away from Carolina. One of the bright spots I thought was Jacolby Criswell. I thought he made a few throws in this game that we haven't seen a quarterback make the first 3 weeks for Carolina. Obviously had a few turnover-worthy plays, had that pick six before the first half, struggles a bit with knowing where pressures are coming from and being able to handle that. But overall, from an arm talent perspective, I thought Jacolby Criswell showed more in this game than we had seen from the two previous quarterbacks in the lead up to this game.
100%. I mean, he looked way better than I imagined. You know, the arm talent has always been there with Jacolby, and I've said this on prior podcasts that when Phil Longo was recruiting Jacolby, he said in shorts he reminded him of Donovan McNabb. Just if you were to watch Jacolby throw in pregame warm-up, you would be like, this guy has a live arm, an NFL arm. He's got an arm strength on par with Drake, with Sam, with those guys. It was the other little things of why Jacolby hasn't been a very successful quarterback in his 4 or 5 year college career. Tremendous arm talent. He threw with great rhythm, with great touch yesterday. He connected on some deep balls, which he was a little rusty with the prior week. I mean, the deep sail route he threw to Pacehour in the first half he was on the far hash and Pacehour ran a corner route on our sideline. I mean, 42 yards down the field, right in the bread basket, an elite throw. So, he hits the ball on 3rd and 18 to Nesbitt, where he ended up dropping it. They dropped 8 and they kind of found a hole in the coverage and Criswell ripped that thing in there and, NFL type throw. He definitely, proved a lot of people wrong. I'm proud of him for his performance. Obviously, the first interception he threw was just a great play by the JMU cornerback when they picked it off on JMU sideline. That's a great play. The throw he wants to have back obviously is, before the half after he takes a sack, 2nd and 18, we're down 21 or 25 at that point, 50 seconds to go in the first half, and he throws a pick six. That's one. He threw it across his body late. He didn't have his feet set. Like, that was a terrible throw. But, you expect those things from a guy that's only started a handful of games in his college career, regardless of if he's a 5th year or 6th year senior or not. But just the offense, they looked, I mean, to score 50 points, to have 475-yard passing yards, and to lose by 20, that was not on my bingo card. But we're positive guys, Vipp, going forward. I mean, our offense should feel good about, where we are with Jacolby. He can win games for us this year. And very, very proud of his performance.
All right, let's take a quick break so I can remind everybody about our friends over at Congruity. Congruity is the leading provider for Tar Heel business owners, payroll, HR, and employee benefit needs. Inside Carolina listeners can get a free payroll and HR assessment by emailing Matt at Congruity. Email is matt@congruityhr.com. That email again is matt@congruityhr.com. All right, let's get back to the episode. I had, according to Pro Football Focus, 6 players graded out at over 70 or better. Jacolby Criswell was one of them. Willie Lampkin, Kobe Paysour, Omar Hampton, who just continues to be a hard runner, and Carolina would most likely be lost without him. Amari Campbell, and then Elijah Huzzy, all graded out at better than 70 overall. According to Pro Football Focus.
Does PFF ever grade coaching staffs?
No. I might apply to help them because I do have some thoughts. But Carolina goes into this Duke week now coming off a loss. You travel to Durham. Looking at that game, you never want a game to beat you twice, and this game against JMU definitely has that capability where you're left looking for a lot of answers. But looking at the Duke game and then looking at the season as a whole and the program as a whole, where does Carolina kind of go from here?
I mean, the cool thing about the players is obviously no one cares more than the players do. I mean, maybe the coaches because their livelihood is tied to their jobs, but the players, they're taking it so hard on themselves right now. But I promise you, these guys are resilient and they'll bounce back. And they only get 4 years to play college football, especially at the University of North Carolina with 12 opportunities in the year. This is the next opportunity against our biggest rival, I guess, other than State. I have no worries that the guys will be up and ready to go for this game. I can only speak on that. I'm not sure where UNC football goes from here. Since the end of the game and us recording this podcast, we've heard some news of Coach Brown, quote unquote, going to Bubba and saying, he wanted to step down. He didn't think he could do it anymore. So I'll let the guys that make a lot of money make those decisions. Where do I think we should go? I don't know. I think it's hard for a head coach to step down in the middle of the season. I've personally never had it happen, but I just know it's a strain on the guys. Coach Williams said it best in his retirement ceremony. He felt he was no longer the best person to lead the University of North Carolina basketball team. And in my opinion, if your head coach, after you start 3-0, if you have any doubts in your mind whether you should be the guy to lead the program, that's not a good thing. And I can't tell a Hall of Fame coach what he should do. Step down. No, I personally think, you see it out. You see out the end of the year because you've put in, so much work with these guys. And look, if we're going to look at it glass half full, we're 0-0 in the ACC, right? How do you, I don't know, just go play the next game and let the powers that may be decide, who should be at the helm of UNC football going forward after this year. But it's not my, it's not my job responsibility to say, who should be, what's the future of Carolina football look like. I don't think I know. I don't think anyone really knows. I'm going to be watching the Duke game next week and, with my UNC gear on and expecting a UNC win. And I'll probably tweet out the day of the game, UNC money line, lock of the century.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that the Carolina fan is having going into the rest of the season is that people that do know football have been kind of waving the flag and being like, hey, more performances like this are going to keep happening because of how this team is set up and how this team is structured. And I think the worry there is that more performances like Saturday are inevitable when you're going against teams in conference play. Now, I don't think Duke really fits that profile of a team that can kind of put a beating on Carolina. And it's more of the teams like the Pitts and the Boston Colleges and teams that you feel a little bit better about what they have at the quarterback position. But I also wouldn't have said that James Madison necessarily profiled that way too. And with this Carolina team and that double-digit stat earlier, it's kind of shown if you expect this Carolina team to do one thing, it's probably going to be the complete opposite of what happens with their inability to put teams away and take care of business when they are a favorite. And the last thing I'll say in the just the discourse that I've kind of seen around Mac Brown and the fans that have kind of pushed back in wanting him to be replaced. I just don't agree with the people who say, like, okay, if you get rid of Mac Brown, what do you do? Or Carolina can't do better than Mac Brown. Because like you mentioned, the jobs of the people high up in the athletic department are to have answers for those kind of questions. You can't just have this basis that, hey, this coach is a Hall of Famer. This coach was great for us in the 90s. This coach won a national championship with Vince Young in 2004. If we keep just replacing the things around him, something is eventually going to click, because it hasn't clicked so far. Carolina's on its third defensive coordinator in 6 years. And the narrative that Carolina can't do better because it hasn't done better is just something – it's almost like you're just admitting defeat. And I think that's the mindset you can't have as an athletic department, being like, hey, if we move on from this guy, what are we going to do that's better? Because you see teams all throughout the country that have these coaches with the fire and the creativity and the mindset to be like, hey, I can take a program that, like Carolina, I can fully go in understanding, hey, Carolina, we're not Georgia, we're not Alabama. We're not going to have the resources to compete at the national level consistently with all those guys. But when you get results against a group of 5 team where you're giving up 70 points, something has to change. And you mentioned it, the people that are getting paid all this money, it's up to them to kind of figure out what those changes are, because we could sit here and talk about these games and what we think and what we would do as much as we want. We're not the people making the decisions. We're not the millionaires in the rooms with the impact. So I think that's a good place to wrap it this week. You're in Tennessee. I'm going to let you go enjoy your concert. I'm in Miami. I'm going to go back and enjoy the pool, the Miami sun. It's an NFL Sunday.